Hi everybody, thank you for being here. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes for a few more people to join. We actually have 28 people registered for this webinar, so I know there's a few more coming. We'll just wait a couple more minutes before we start, if that's okay. Can I just check, those of you who are on here already, can you hear me clearly? Perhaps you could just mention in the chat if you can hear me. Perfect, thank you. People who are on time. Okay, I think we'll start and we'll see how many people join us along the way. If necessary, we can repeat some of the early comments later if more people are joining. So thank you so much for being here. I'm Joanna Hotung. I'm the founder of KG Group. And it's actually nice to see some of the names of the parents who have registered for the talk, because some of you I haven't seen for several years, not since your children were very little, and now the children are grown up and of an age to be looking for boarding schools, which is fantastic, looking at secondary schools. It's my pleasure today to introduce you to Arabella Stewart. Arabella is the Director of Admissions at Sevenoaks School, and also to Stanley Leung, who's the chairman of Friends of Sevenoaks School in Hong Kong. Arabella's she's got a presentation about Sevenoaks School first, which she's going to show us. And then we're going to go into a Q&A. And Stanley's actually an old Sevenokian, so he has first-hand experience of being a boarding school student at Sevenoaks from Hong Kong. And so he'll be able to join in with the Q&A as well. So thank you for being here again, and I'm going to hand over to Arabella.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Also, actually, to Stanley and Joanna and Edith in the background for giving me the opportunity to talk to you this morning. I was very much hoping to make it to Hong Kong last year, as I usually do, but plans definitely went awry last year. I'll be back, I hope, in April. But in the meantime, it's great to have the opportunity to tell you a little bit about Sevenoaks School. Please do ask your questions in the chat all the way through, if you'd like. And also, at the end, if you feel you'd like to get to know me better, ask your own personal questions, then you can certainly arrange a Zoom call with me. Now, I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. So, Sevenoaks School, we're a very different kind of a school from some other top independent schools that you might be looking at for your children in the UK. And my task, I suppose, today is going to be, as far as I can, to explain how we're different from some of those other schools. So, although we were founded very early, we were founded in 1432 alongside, the very earliest of the schools in the UK, we were reinvented in the 1950s by an extremely forward-thinking headmaster, Kim Taylor. And the school therefore feels contemporary. It feels forward-thinking, unstuffy, It's not hidebound by tradition as some other schools have been, and it's got a very, very different feel. It's diverse, so fully co-educational, for example, 50% girls and boys. There are 46 different nationalities in the school. We start boarding at age 13, and between 13 and 18, we have 40% boarders. In the sixth form, it's over 50% boarders, and they come from 46 different nationalities. It's also economically diverse, so a lot of our day students come from very modest backgrounds, and it's characterized by groundedness. Our pupils are down to earth, they're humble, they're able to get along with anyone. But it is a top school in terms of the academic results and in terms of university entry, though we would describe ourselves absolutely not as a hothouse, rather as it's a place where it's cool to be clever, where people admire each other for success, where they support each other through their academic journey. And we very much focus on developing the whole person. Now, for those of you who don't know Sevenoaks, here we are, the big red spot there. We're 25 minutes from London Bridge on the train. So in normal times, we've got easy access to all that London has to offer, going up to the theatre in an evening, for example, or an art gallery at the weekend. And lots of school trips, generally speaking, go up there. We're 30 minutes away from Gatwick Airport and an hour from Heathrow. So we're really very well placed in the southeast of England there. Yet, we are so very different from London. Sevenoaks is a small market town. You can cross it in 5 minutes, but it's got everything that a boarder would want. It's got restaurants. There is even a Chinese restaurant, although I don't think this food is exactly the same as you would get in Hong Kong. There are cafes, there's a cinema, a theatre. There's a really lovely independent bookshop, which has grown massively through lockdown, actually. Everybody's been buying books, clearly. There's Waitrose, Boots, Marks and Spencer's. My husband, who is somewhat of an introvert and who has actually loved lockdown, says that he thinks he never needs to leave Sevenoaks again in his life. And it's a very safe town. It's full of families with school-aged children, bankers and lawyers who travel up to London in normal times for their jobs and so on. The other thing about Sevenoaks is it's surrounded by really beautiful green spaces with wonderful paths. You can see this photograph I took in the spring when we were during lockdown on one of my distanced walks, for beautiful paths for walking and running. And you can get to this path here within easy distance of Sevenoaks town and the school. And you may know that Kent is known as the Garden of England, so there are lots of apple and cherry orchards around us again. So I think we're lucky to have the space and the cleanliness despite living so close to London. This is the school campus, which also gives an impression, I think, of greenery and space. Just to sort of allow you to situate it, we are just behind a huge deer park called Knoll Park with a Tudor sort of palace in the middle of it. And that's literally borders the school at the top of that image, as you can see it. And right next door to the school on the left-hand side there is Sevenoaks town. And the campus itself, you can see the high street there. We started off very small, very cozy, and gradually we bought up these houses, these manor houses on the high street and their back gardens. And then we have filled it in gradually with buildings. Our campus has been redeveloped within the last 15 years by our outgoing head, Katie Ricks, and the facilities now are absolutely superb for delivering a top-class education. We have, of course, got some old buildings. This one was our first boarding house, schoolhouse, which is now called Old School and has been repurposed as the maths department. Right the way through to the ultra-modern, this was the last building that Katie Ricks built, our science and technology building, which was opened a couple of years ago. It's a far cry from the biology prefabricated huts, which I spent some 30 years teaching in, and I'm particularly delighted by these fabulous new classrooms, state-of-the-art equipment and wonderful light and airy environments for us and open environments for us. And just round the corner from this building, also developed at the same time, is a sixth form centre. a very well-resourced higher education department, and a cafe. And the school's full of beautiful gardens, space for sitting and chatting. Our distancing students really enjoyed the Indian summer earlier on this term, and it's a beautiful environment for us all. Our incoming headmaster, Jesse Eltsinger, he's been enjoying wandering around the campus, getting to know the students where he can. It's sad, isn't it, to join a school during lockdown or during these times, but he's been doing assemblies on Zoom, and he's been going out running, cross-country running with the students, playing ping pong with them in their common room with his all masked up and everything. We've all really enjoyed getting to know him. He's brought a sort of enthusiasm and energy to the school, which is wonderful for us all. So academic life, our senior team here has taken a very thoughtful approach to the development of the curriculum. They've consulted widely with professionals in the workplace who are looking, we know, for attributes like critical thinking, flexibility of mind, organisational skills, and self-motivation. The development of these qualities is embedded in the International Baccalaureate, which all of our students study in the sixth form. I know that you in Hong Kong have a very good understanding of the merits of the IB, and so I won't describe it to you right now, but if anybody wants to know more about it, they're very welcome to get in touch with me. But suffice to say, we feel that it's the best sixth form education for preparation for the modern world of work and life indeed. And we've also introduced some non-examined courses into the middle school so that these skills are fostered at a younger age too. Our exam results are very good. We are one of the top IB schools globally, and we do take it seriously in terms that we really are focusing on the roundedness, which you'll be able to see a bit later on. But I don't want to push these results too much. You can see more detail on the website, and I think it's very important for me to stress that these results are achieved through a supportive intellectual environment which also allows the students the space to develop their other interests rather than through an overly pressured atmosphere. The IGCSE and GCSE results are similarly impressive, but as Schoolhouse magazine has said about us, we really are not an exam factory. Now, here's a typical day at Sevenoaks, just so that you see how it would work for your children. We all eat breakfast together and at about 8 o'clock. And then the students will go into their tutor meetings, followed by 6 academic lessons of about 50 minutes each. So there is a break after every 2 lessons and a really long lunch break and an activity slot after supper. Then the boarding students go back to their boarding house if they don't have any evening activities going on, and it's sort of getting ready for bedtime at around 9 o'clock. We are a 6-day week school, so we have school on Saturday mornings and we have sports fixtures on Saturday afternoons. And incidentally, on a couple of afternoons a week, we have games or service to the community going on as well. So it's not 6 academic lessons every single day. So Sunday is the only day the students have off, and I'll tell you a bit about that later. Co-curricular activities are really important in all top schools. Sevenoaks is not different from other schools in this respect. And the facilities and opportunities here are superb. So there's always a play and rehearsal. There's plenty of student-led drama. Every other year, we take a tour to Germany. And in 2021, we'll be taking The Great Gatsby, a musical version, which is going to be written by our own school staff, or is being currently written and rehearsed by our own school staff. We have students who write, cast, produce, direct, and act in their own plays. And in most years, you would find an old Sevenokian group at the Edinburgh Fringe, that festival of drama in Scotland. This is our concert hall. It's absolutely magnificent. Another one of Katie Ricks's splendid buildings. It's got a wonderful stage which can seat a full symphony orchestra. It's got pull-out choir stalls at the back there. Wonderfully comfortable seating for the audience members, I'm pleased to report. And round about 50 concerts a year. We want to cater for students who are beginners, right the way through to students who are professionals, who've achieved their grade 8 and beyond on their instrument. We're interested in students being able to perform rock music right through to classical music. So very much it's a school where there's opportunity for all. And with rising 1,200 students in the school, we're very much able to do that. Some of our elite musicians attend the London music colleges on Saturdays. We're especially known for excellence in chamber music, and we always have groups in the finals of the National Pro Chorder Chamber Music competitions. Every 3 years or so, the music and drama departments combine forces and they put on a musical, which is always much loved by the students and the parents. This last one was Les Misérables. The art department is open every lunchtime and every day after school, with staff on hand to help anyone, whether they are a beginner or an expert. It's a multimedia department, so students can develop their skills in pottery, sculpture, photography and filmmaking, for example. GCSE and IB students have their own work area, so they don't have to clear away between lessons, and it feels like a professional artist's studio. It's always fun to visit the art department when we're able to show it off. We also hold an annual exhibition at the Oxo Barge in London so that our students can really show off their work professionally. Sport, of course, is another very important co-curricular area, and here I think we do have differences from other top schools because we aim to foster a lifelong love of one particular sport or more than one particular sport in order to promote fitness and social interaction. So, for example, later on in life, our students can join sports clubs and get to know new people, and of course keep fit for their life, which is so important, we all know. We also know that not everyone is cut out for every sport, and we don't want to insist, for example, that a new student joining us who's never played rugby in their life and perhaps comes from a tropical country is being forced to go out onto a cold and miserable rugby pitch and be beaten about for a couple of hours on a Saturday afternoon. Of course, there are some boys and girls who are really well suited to that, but not everybody. So at Sevenoaks, we have a particularly varied and flexible programme, again for beginners right through to experts. Our sailors, and sailing is an extremely good sport at Sevenoaks, and we're very successful at it. So our sailors very often will win the National School Sailing Championships, and our B team has been known to come second. So we're known for being within the top 10 schools in the UK for the breadth and depth of sport on offer. There are so many different opportunities, and the national representation within the student body is exceptional. So yes, there are the team sports of hockey, football, rugby, cricket, netball and athletics, but also many, many individual sports. We host the Knoll Run here every year in the wonderful Knoll Park that I've mentioned earlier, and that's attended by schools from across the country and even internationally. There's badminton, squash, volleyball, basketball, golf and shooting. We're a centre for excellence in tennis in the southeast of England too, and that's another area where pupils represent at national level. There's a 25-metre, 6-lane heated pool, excellent coaching, strong national representation here too. Every day, a daily bulletin gives information about the many, many clubs and societies that are on offer in the school. This one is the Kit Car Making Society. And, you know, there are chess, there's lots of debating. We do Model United Nations, there are natural history clubs. And if there's a club that doesn't exist that a student would like to see, they can start it. And we're very, very supportive of new clubs being set up. Service is hugely important at Sevenoaks. It's a core part of course, of the IB, and we firmly believe that it develops our students' empathy and their moral code. And we have allocated recently extra staff time to develop even more service opportunities for our students locally, nationally and internationally, because we'd like them to be a force for the good when they leave us at the end of their Sevenoaks career. And of course, there are lots of our students will take part in, for example, CCF and the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme, which will help them to develop team building and leadership skills. I will quickly mention right now that during the past months, our co-curricular activities, our classroom learning, our meal times have all had to be severely curtailed due to the pandemic. And we have listened very carefully to parents of children all across the world to make sure that we're putting in place safety precautions which will keep our students safe and which our pupil and parent body will feel comfortable with. I'm really delighted to report that we've made it, I'm touching wood like mad here, but we've made it to 1.5 weeks out of the end of term. All of our students are still here. A few of them are leaving early in order to quarantine at home, you know, and be able to see their families over Christmas. But we haven't had a single case among the pupil body in school. So we're really thrilled about that. And clearly the safety measures that we put in place have helped us and helped the students more importantly. Our tutor system is also very different from more traditional schools. So you might know that more traditional schools have a house system, everybody eats in their house, and there's a very strong house spirit. At Sevenoaks, we kind of turn that on its head. So we want to break down the barriers between the students. We want to encourage the girls, the boys, the boarders and the day students to be friends with each other, to be able to spend time with each other, not to be competitive against each other, but to be collaborative and supportive with each other. So our tutor system is a bit different. Everyone will meet their day or boarding tutor at 8:30 every morning, and that's a moment to check academic progress, to monitor involvement in the wider life of the school, to problem solve and so on. Messages are passed on and the daily bulletin is read. You have a tutor for each stage of the school. So one if you're as a day student in the lower school, one in the middle school and then one in the upper school. And the tutor is the central person in the student's life. It's their sort of personal organizer, the center of communications between the student, the teachers and the parents. It's kind of like having another godparent, somebody who's really looking out for you and really going to help you through and smooth the way through that section of the school. But during the rest of the day, in their free time, the students will spend time in their year group common rooms when they're free. So this means that all of our community can easily get to know each other. We have at the moment year group common rooms for every single different year group. So year 8, year 9, year 10, they all have their own individual common room. And my own children, who were born and brought up in Sevenoaks and lived here throughout their childhood, it meant that they were able to make close friends with boarders from across the world. And Alec, for example, spent a New Year on Lake Malawi with a Malawian boy and went to Mumbai with an Indian friend to watch the England-India test match for 5 days with some mates. So what amazing opportunities for them. And I think also for your children coming to board here from Hong Kong, that they can make friends with children who live just around the corner, maybe go and spend a weekend with them, experience a proper English roast lunch and some walks in that beautiful countryside I mentioned earlier on. Boarding, of course, is hugely important, and boarding houses are beautiful here. They've got a very good reputation, very high standards. They're cosy, they're comfortable, they're extremely well equipped. They form the function of a home from home rather than the central part of your school experience, but nevertheless, the boys or the girls, depending on the house, you know, will become like brothers or sisters to each other. The boys and girls will go to their boarding house in the evening and they will, you know, be able to watch television, play ping pong and so on. I do apologise, something's writing on my screen. I'm not quite sure what happened there. There are kitchens but as I mentioned before, we all eat together centrally in the central dining hall, and boarders are able to have their breakfast and supper with anybody in any house. As I mentioned, higher education is superb. The students go on to outstanding universities. They're very, very well catered for by an outstandingly well-resourced higher education department with subject specialists and experts in the UK, US and global university entry. So some of our students will go back to Hong Kong, for example, to medical school. They're given a great deal of support and help in choosing the right university for them. And this is an impressive list. Consistently, over a third of our students will go to universities within the top 20 world university rankings. But we are most proud that our students will leave us as humble, able to get on with anyone, confident but not brash, and brilliantly well educated for life in the 21st century. Now, I'm going to quickly whiz through the admissions process. You can see lots more information about this on our website, and then we'll be available for questions and answers. I will be there, and Stanley Leung, our old Sevenokian, who is very kindly hosting this for me today, will be able to tell you of his experiences at Sevenoaks and beyond, and the Sevenoaks School Network in Hong Kong, of which he is the chairman. So do get your questions coming. We're here for you and we'll answer any. As our headmaster Jessie would say, the harder the better, bring them on, we're ready. So I'll just quickly whiz through the admissions process. For you, boarding, you would be applying from either at year 9 or at sixth form level. And the timings are important. So if you want to join at year 9, you need to apply about 2 years before joining. For sixth form, it's the 1st of August, a year before joining. And our entry criteria are different from other schools as well. So actually our top criterion for entry is the personality of the student. So we're very interested in students who are kind, collaborative, who have positive personality types, who will really support and admire each other and help us maintain that ethos that it's cool to be clever. And we look for that through a group interview, through a report, through a reference. Indeed, for year 9 entries, sometimes the boarders are able to stay overnight in the boarding house if they come to Sevenoaks, although I do usually come and do a really thorough assessment of the many students who apply from Hong Kong as well. The second criterion for entry is the co-curricular involvement, which we can get it from the parents actually, but also the report, because we want students who will come to sport, art, drama, debating, chess, whatever it is that they're interested in, rather than students who just will be sitting at their desk all the time and just all about their grades. That wouldn't be the Sevenoaks way. But finally, Sevenoaks is what I would call a fast-paced school academically, which means that when we teach the syllabus, we go through it pretty quickly. The students understand things quickly, they pick new things up quickly, and we have to make absolutely sure that the student themselves will be happy at the school. So the academic tests are there in order to make sure that they will not lose their confidence, but they will thrive and be happy with us. That's probably the most important thing. So for year 9 entry, they'll be tested in English and maths. There are past papers on the website, plus verbal reasoning. And in sixth form, it's English, maths, and also a sciences and a humanities test. There are scholarships available. Academic scholarships, you're selected if you've done very well in the entrance tests, and there is a process for year 9, not for sixth form. And you can also apply on entry for either art, drama, music or sports scholarships. There is financial support available, but I'm afraid only for day students, not for boarders. So here is the contact information in case you want to set up a Zoom call with me, but I'm now going to then also stop sharing imminently, and let's see if we've got any questions that you'd like us to answer. Perhaps I'll hand back to Joanna for that to chair that session. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Arabella. Wow. You must have parents telling you that they want to go back to school after they hear that presentation. It's absolutely wonderful. So we actually have some more people on the call now who missed the introduction. So just to recap, so Arabella Stewart is with us, the Director of Admissions, and also Stanley Leung, who's the Chairman of the Friends of Sevenoaks School in Hong Kong, and available to answer all your questions. You can either please speak them, or you can type them into the group chat if you would prefer. Maybe I can just start with one, because I've actually got a couple that people had asked me in advance because they can't attend this call. The first question I've got from a parent is, for children, the boarding starts at year 9. For parents who want their children to start year 7, do you have any guardianship arrangements that you can support with, and so that the children can actually attend the school but be day pupils?
Yeah, okay, so I'll talk about that. I think that for year 7, probably the best way forward that I would recommend is actually to go to a prep school. And I know of many, many prep schools who are fantastic, which have the roundedness, which can prepare your child for entry to 13. And there you'll have lots of other students, children who are in at the weekends, who can be friends with your child, and who then will go off to lots and lots of other top schools in the UK, as well as Sevenoaks. So that would probably be my best solution, because I'm thinking about the comfort of the child themselves. But if you definitely want to come to Sevenoaks at year 7, there is a company called Aegis, AEGIS, which will help you with finding a guardian potentially that your child could live with. Some parents will be able to come here on work visas or student visas and will be able to stay for a couple of years. But as I said, I would recommend a boarding prep school is the better way, I think.
Great, thank you.
And the other thing I'll say about boarding is that it's very important to know your child and to know yourself, and not to send a child to board too early. Some children are ready at age 11, or even earlier, in fact. Some children are, and some families are. A lot of children are ready, I would say, at 13, but some are not ready until 16. And I think it's important for the child's confidence going on through life that they go at the time when they're ready, when they're excited, when they're eager, when they're looking forward to it. And you need to be able to bear to part with them as well. That's quite important too.
There's a question here. On average, how many applicants per year, and what is the intake number?
Okay, very good question. Really good to get the facts and figures. So we take in about 80 day students in year 7. We take in 100 students at year 9, most of whom, well, certainly a lot more than half are boarders of those. And then we take in another 75 students at 16, and nearly all of those are boarders. And the numbers applying roughly the same. Well, let's go for the numbers who actually take the tests, is roughly speaking 300 for each of those entries. So we'll have more than that applying, but during the confirmation process, some people will drop out. So around about 300 for 80, 300 for 100, 300 for 75. Now, I'm going to just talk specifically about Hong Kong at the moment, because there are a lot of people who apply to all of our schools in the UK from Hong Kong. And they are, a lot of the time, fabulous students, people. They're involved, they're great students, children, you know, wonderful. But we know that you don't want your child to come to a school which is got lots and lots of children from Hong Kong, because then you might as well have stayed in Hong Kong. So we work very carefully at Sevenoaks to ensure that there's diversity within the student body, so that out of maybe 10 or 12 boys, let's say, or girls joining a boarding house, you wouldn't expect more than 2 to come from Hong Kong. You know, and that way you've got, your child will feel fit in, they'll make friends, and everybody sort of mixes up beautifully. We find that sort of level of diversity works really, really well. And that aim of between 40 and 50 different nationalities within the boarding community is terribly important for us.
Great. Any questions from anyone here? I have another one on my list, actually. I was given the list in advance. Is it okay for children coming from different academic systems? So, for example, coming from our local school system in Hong Kong or coming perhaps from the American system? Any challenge with that?
That's a great question too. So Sevenoaks is different from other schools in that regard as well, because many of the top schools are still sort of relying very much on the prep school system. At Sevenoaks, we want to make our entry process accessible to anybody from any educational system anywhere in the world. That's a very, very important thing for us. So that's partly why I put the English and maths papers up on the website, so that you can see the maths paper is a problem-solving type of paper. There is algebra involved, but it's not so much sums as problem-solving. The English paper is comprehension and free writing. The verbal reasoning paper is, you just have to do some verbal reasoning background, but you don't have to have done the common entrance syllabus. You don't have to have done the British syllabus in order to access our entry tests at year 9. And at sixth form level, similarly, the tests are designed to be open to people from lots of different backgrounds. I have to say the American background is quite tricky for us, because they do a science a year, for example, rather than doing all 3 sciences simultaneously. And so they may be taking a test not having really studied chemistry before, for example, but we take that into consideration, and we try to see past and take into consideration the sort of background that the students have experienced. Key for us is that a child is going to be sparky, bright, quick on the uptake, kind and involved. And actually, if they are clever, if we can see that they're clever, whatever background they've come from, even if they join at 16, they will be fine, they will do well, and they will get to a really good university.
Great, that's another question in the chat box. For 13 plus, is the chance better for day school for Hong Kong students?
Is the chance better for day school for Hong Kong students? Yes, it is better at the moment. However, I know that due to the political situation and so on, there are a lot of families moving back to the UK. So I'm not quite sure how long that will continue for. At the moment, it is easier. Yes. Yeah. I wonder whether I might ask a question actually of Stanley. I don't know, you've known the school for so many years. Can you comment on your experience at the school and what it gave you, and maybe how it's changed over the past 30 or so years since you were here?
Well, I think, the most outstanding things, from a boarding school in the UK, either be it Sevenoaks or any other school, is that you actually ended up, making, very good lifelong friends, along the way, as compared to, after that at university, it's not quite the same. And certainly, after university at work, you would not, make that bond, as compared to life that, at Sevenoaks. And I think, the funny thing about Sevenoaks is the continuation, of the friendship, with people of such different background. For example, one of my best friend and, everybody around me, knows him, including Joanna. We go on holiday each year, and he is, he was born in London, but then his father is American, and then his mother, is French. So, I don't know whether you call an American French person born in London, being, what you call them, But anyhow, and when my son goes to boarding school in the UK, he became the guardian, and then he go and look after my son, and we see each other like, 3-4 times a year, despite he still stay in London. The other thing is through him, I know another, young Sevenokians, whom I'm sure that Arabella, is Capuchin. She was the head girl at the school. And when she came to Hong Kong, I got introduced because, she is, the best friend of this particular person, Cedric, who was a boarder with me at the IC at that time. And it's very interesting. She's also French. She's born in London. She went to my same university, the LSE, and after that, she went to Tsinghua, to did her, Schwarzman MBA, and now she worked for Swire Group in Hong Kong. But then she's not working in Hong Kong. She's actually working for Swire Group in Chengdu in China. So that is the kind of diversity that you see, in Sevenoaks. And as you said, you tend to make friends. And at the last year of my Sevenoaks, just before university, I went around, in the whole of Africa, is initially being hosted by, one of the board at the IC in Kenya. And I was probably, one of the, I think, I would be within the top 10 Chinese, setting foot on the northern coastal island of, I can't even remember the name. It's called Normal or Kuma, in the northeast coast of Kenya. So that's the sort of things that you do, and you end up doing, if you go to a school like Sevenoaks. And, we've got tons of stories like that. But, I was at a boarding house at the IC. So I think, they had probably about 30 different nationalities. And, from Hong Kong, there's only, as Arabella was pointing out, to make sure that diversity is there. I think at that particular boarding house, I was one of only 2 persons being admitted to that boarding house at the 6th form, for that year. I mean, it's tough to get in, but once you get in, I think it's a very good thing, and that would last for a very long time.
Wonderfully summed up. Thank you so much, Stanley.
There's another question here. It's talking about the Hong Kong Diploma of Secondary Education. So this is our local academic system. Has a big difference from the IB. And just wondering if Hong Kong students joining at 16 plus or joining 6th form can adapt to the vigorous IB curriculum and the CAS requirements.
Yeah, so absolutely. What we do with the IB, I mean, as I said, I teach biology. So every year you'll have a class of about 10 or 12 students joining you at 16. Round about 2/3 of those students will have come up through the middle school, and about 1/3 of the students in your class will have joined in the 6th form. So they're all mixed together. They're all coming from, many different educational backgrounds, some of them from, occasionally from Hong Kong or India or America or wherever. And so when you teach the course, you teach it from the basics upwards, but you teach it quickly. So the student will get all of the information, all of the knowledge that they'll get all of the information they need, but they'll have to be bright and they'll have to pick it up quickly. Anybody who gets into Sevenoaks is going to be capable of that. It is tricky, as Stanley said, to get in. It's tough. You've got to be good. If you get in, you will be fine. We're looking out very carefully to make sure we don't put somebody into the school who will not cope. We're looking for people who will flourish and fly in our 6th form. One of the key things, and it does very much depend on the school experience that they've had in Hong Kong, is whether the student is open to discussion and debate. So the style of education in the UK very much is questioning and being confident about challenging. And sometimes that mindset, needs to change and the student needs to open up. But I think that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of people in your part of the world do choose British education, because you're aware of, I mean, the pace, the depth of mathematical education, for example, in Hong Kong is fabulous. But as I said, what does the workplace need? It needs people who are confident, collaborative, who can challenge, who are creative problem solvers, rather than people who are good at answering questions. And I think it's that style of education, perhaps, that some Hong Kong students need to be open to changing when they come.
Yeah, a comment that's not specifically about Sevenoaks, but that's been asked of me many times is, can you go straight from a local school to a school like Sevenoaks. And I mean, it depends obviously on the school that you're coming from, but if it's a school that's very into memorization type of learning rather than application of learning, it's very difficult. And what some parents do is they actually move to an international school in Hong Kong first for a year or 2 years or even 3 years to sort of prepare the mindset to then apply to a school like Sevenoaks for sixth form. That's a fairly typical path that parents do here.
And that's a really good idea, but also I'd recommend the summer schools in the UK. There are various different kinds of summer schools in different schools, but at Sevenoaks we have one for a 2-week summer school in the first half, and it's repeated in the second half of July. And that is a sort of academic summer school where we do critical thinking, where we do debating, where we focus on those sorts of mind broadening activities. And that, you know, that is also another way of preparing your child for joining this kind of an education. Yeah.
Here's a technical question for you. Daughter born in July 2007. Can she going to test your maths now.
July 2007, right?
July 2007. Can she apply for year 10 next year, 2021?
Okay, so she's now, so she's now 17, 12, 13, and so 2021. Well, right, yes, she would be the, so I'll say she will be the correct year, the correct age rather, to join us in year 10, 2021. However, 2021 isn't a normal entry point for us. So what you need to do is to be on our waiting list, and you email me your report, latest school report of your daughter, and a covering letter outlining her interests and enthusiasms, and she goes on a waiting list. And then if a place becomes available, then we will test your daughter and bring her in. But I would say it's not very likely to happen. So probably sixth form is your more likely way in. I hope that's clear.
So the main entry years are year 9 and year 12.
And year 12, and then for day students, year 7. So age 11, age 13 for boarding, and day, age 16, mostly boarding. Yeah.
Okay. There are various questions about different tests that students have taken. When you actually interviewed them and considered them, do you take into consideration all of the different results that they've received from different tests that they've taken?
No, this is very different at Sevenoaks. So actually the first thing I consider is the person. So we have group interviews, whether the students are tested in Hong Kong or whether they're tested in the UK. We have groups of 6 children, distanced in these times, and 2 teachers. And we give them collaborative tasks to do, discussion-based tasks to do these days as a group. And what we're looking out for is for students who will listen to each other, include each other, work well together, have a positive personality type. I gather information from the report, from the parents' confirmation form as well, about activities and interests. And then I form a view. How well will this child fit into Sevenoaks School? So are they going to be a wonderful, positive, kind, lovely member of the community who will also contribute to a very high level? That's who I'm looking for. And once I've established who those children are, then I look at their academic results, and then I see, will they cope? And however much I love a child and think they would be fabulous, if I think they would have a miserable time, then I can't accept them. But much of the time, those fabulous children that I've identified end up also having done very well in the tests, and so they come. So this, I think you can see, is very different from a school which will only look at the results, you know, rank the students from the top to the 100th or whatever, and not consider so carefully the character. And I think that's what makes Sevenoaks such a special place, is because we really, really focus on positive children. So, for example, there's very, very little unpleasant behaviour between the students. If you ask the students themselves, they would say there isn't really any bullying at Sevenoaks School. I would never be so arrogant as to say that, but I do feel it's an incredibly positive, kind environment. And then, of course, if students are happy, they will thrive and they will succeed and do their best. That's our view.
So it's character first. I think I know the answer to the next question, which is Sevenoaks stronger in the arts or the sciences?
So yeah, I mean, I could show you a list of the destinations that our students have gone on to at university, and you'll see that there's a really good spread between arts, humanities, sciences. And if you look on our website and you look at the academic and the destinations, and you look for the courses that the students have gone on to, you'll absolutely see that. So the key thing is there's strength in teaching through every area, but it's finding out what that child, what that student wants to do, is interested in, and is best at, and then guiding them towards that. I also would like to mention that there's no difference here between the girls and the boys. So we have girls going on to do engineering and maths at Cambridge. We have boys going on to do English and drama. So it's not stereotyped. It's open to all, and we'll support everybody and try to help them find the route that is the right one for them.
Could I have more details on scholarship, please?
Yes, okay. So for year 9 entry, if you do very well in your entrance test, then I will invite you to take the academic scholarship exam, and that happens in the April of year 8, or May of year 8, so just before you're due to come. And you would then come to Sevenoaks for a couple of days of tests and interviews. It's quite a fun way to join the school. You already know you're coming. You can spend time with your boarding house master mistress, get to know the other very bright students who are joining. And as a result of that, we can offer you a scholarship. Now, these days in Sevenoaks and other top schools, actually, scholarships are not worth very much money. It's about the honour and the glory. It's good to have, to be a scholar at Sevenoaks. You can put it on your university application form, and later on in life, it's an accolade. And you will have certain activities that you can join into while at school, whether you're an academic scholar, or indeed, if you're a scholar in art, music, drama, or sport, which also the assessment of happens at the same time. So it's not about financial reward, it is about honour, the honour of being awarded a scholarship. At sixth form level, academic scholars are selected purely on the basis of their entrance tests and their interviews, so there isn't a second process for academic scholarships, but there is a separate process if you want to apply for sport, music, art, or drama. There is a lot of information if you go to the website under admissions and then scholarships, which gives you more detailed information about what we're looking for in each of those co-curricular areas.
Okay, I think we've got time for just 1 or 2 more questions. Another specific one. So a parent who thinks they may have missed the application deadline for
Yes, I should have mentioned that. So there will be some of you who've missed the application deadline. And what you can do is, as I said, for the waiting list for year 10, is you can email in to us your child's latest school report, covering letter, information about their interests and their enthusiasms. And then, sometimes later on down the year, and I have to say, I think in this year in particular, you might have people dropping out for all kinds of reasons. And then perhaps we would be able to go to the waiting list in order to test somebody later in the process. So it's definitely worth keeping in touch with us on the off chance that a place comes up later.
And they can contact you directly, Arabella, can they?
They absolutely can. In fact, the email addresses that I gave, they go to Fenella, my colleague, or Emily, which is the sixth form registrar, and then they will pass them on to me or to Lorna Dolan, who is our sixth form, in charge of sixth form entry.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. Well, it's wonderful, Arabella. You're so open and so available to all of these questions and to parents, and that's absolutely fantastic. So thank you for that. Maybe at the end we can put your email back up on the screen for everybody. Also, any of you who are in Hong Kong, please also feel free to contact us at KG Group. We can also put you in touch with Sevenoaks via, through a Hong Kong route. If any of you feel that you need support in Hong Kong with any of the academic English or the preparation or advice as to how to join a school like Sevenoaks, which is frankly very different. The approach is very different from many of the top schools in Hong Kong. What Arabella was saying about character first and about children who are willing to discuss and debate and all of these wonderful skills, as well as being academic. These are all things that we can also talk to you about here in Hong Kong, or obviously please contact Arabella and her team directly. Oh, it's great, it's there. Thank you very much. So Arabella's put the email address in the chat box. So it's regist, R-E-G-I-S-T, @sevenoaksschool.org. Are international students doing classes online or at campus right now?
The vast majority are on campus. I've got one boy in my, I'm teaching the theory of knowledge this year, which is a critical thinking course for the IB. And I've got one student, upper sixth student, who has remained in China during the whole of this term. So every single one of my lessons, and we all will do exactly the same, I set up a Teams meeting, and the camera is focused on the board and on me then, and that student logs into every lesson live and gets the lesson. But the vast majority came back. What we did was we had a 2-week quarantine period from mid-August, so students could come back at the middle of August, stay for 2 weeks in a boarding house quarantined. I mean, it was tough for them, but you know, well done them, they came. And then they were able to access not only, of course, the academic lessons in person, but also those activities that we have been able to put on. So, I mean, there have been able to be drama rehearsals within your year group bubble, or chess club, or there's been CCF. I mean, there have been lots of sport. There have been lots of things going on. We've just had to sort of modify them, I suppose. And so that's been wonderful that they've been able to be here all the way through.
Okay. Oh, you have lots of thank yous.
It's so nice that you could join us, and I'd like to say thank you to Stanley and Joanna, particularly again, for allowing me to meet you all.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for being with us, Arabella. Take care. Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hope to see you soon here.
Thank you.